Hi,
Hi Barbara, how are you?
hang on. Let me see.
Now I
I'm not
can
sure if I should use my headphones or not, and I can
completely.
hear better, but let me see if I can unplug it and because it might look better for a visual. And if I don't know, would it look better if I go, if I'm like that?
This looks nice.
Ah, I'll turn it up. How are you,
I'm very
Zoe?
well. I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, you're calling from where?
I'm in London.
Yeah.
I'm across the pond because
Yeah.
you're in the US, aren't you?
US, yeah. But I work with a lot of people who are from London because I'm working with a company called AMP
Yeah.
Film. Yeah. So one of the guys lives here kind of semi-permanently, but everybody else is back in the UK. So I'm always first thing in the morning, I'm like, okay, let's get our work done because it's like 5 o'clock there.
You're used
Yeah.
to it. Well, thank you so much for taking some time today
Yeah.
to chat to me. I won't take up too much of your time, probably
Fine.
about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Just go through some questions with you, and then I'll let Andy and the team make it all look nice for the
Yeah.
DVD.
Okay, great. Sure.
Cool. So if you're happy, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start.
Okay, great.
So I recently watched Sacrifice, and I would say that your character is quite mysterious throughout
Mhm.
the whole of the film. What was it that first attracted you to the role?
Well, first of all, it was based on a story that I hadn't read at the time, but
Mhm.
it, the tone of the film had a sort of Lovecraftian feel to it,
Yeah,
and I'm all about Lovecraft, so immediately that struck me, and I really liked my character because she was, as you say, kind of mysterious and hiding a secret and kind of nice, but maybe not. And also, it gave me the opportunity to um, learn an accent that I hadn't worked with before, to learn a Norwegian accent. So I thought that would be fun. And
yeah.
yeah, and I had also worked with Sean Knopp before on a film. He's one of the producers. And he was the one that originally reached out to me and said, we'd love to have you for this role. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, all of those things.
And how was it? Because I mean, personally, I'm awful at accents. It's
Mm.
a running joke with my friends. But how did you learn the Norwegian accent? How did you find it? Was it tough?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think all accents are tough, and you're always questioning yourself whether, it's right or not because it's something that you're putting upon your character.
Yeah.
Um, I worked with a Scandinavian language instructor,
Oh
and
wow.
she came to my house, and we had about six or seven sessions.
Yeah.
And she came, and she was from Norway, and so she came over and basically we just worked on every bit of dialogue multiple times. She also recorded all of the dialogue for me so
Yeah.
that I could listen to her saying it. And I felt like since my character was, um, the head of this cult, that I should have more Norwegian in me than even the Norwegians over there. So I think my accent was the strongest, even of anyone's, because I found that also when I got there, a lot of the Norwegians had spent time in England or spent time in other countries. And so there was a little bit of Swedish mixed in with the Norwegian and a little bit of a British accent. But I just wanted my character to be completely Norwegian and no question about it. So I had a pretty heavy accent and
Yeah.
I wanted it to be that way.
Well, it's a fantastic accent, so well done for nailing that. It's great. And your character, as we mentioned, I think I really loved that character. I think it brings, you know, the whole film alive. And I think, you know, the whole way through, you're kind of really intrigued to know more about the character, and also, you know, her family, her daughter, etc. How did you go around developing that character and really fleshing it out and bringing her to life?
You know, the funny thing is about people that are evil, they don't think they are. So you don't have to play evil. You know, every character should be able to justify what they're doing, even if it seems nefarious to others. So for me, it was just important to play the truth of what my character wanted. And she needed that sacrifice to be able to move on and satisfy the Cthulhu god that was in the ocean. Um, and she'd been waiting a very long time. So she had patience. So, and she knew that she didn't have to, you know, completely jump on the sacrifice aspect of it. She could take her time because there was no way that they were leaving.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I just worked on, you know, like I do with all of my characters, just the intention of what I wanted and what I felt that I needed for myself and for my town and for the character.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I mean, fantastic character, and I think, you know, you play her incredibly well, as you do all of your other roles.
Well, thanks.
And I know that you mentioned that you were really drawn into the storyline regarding Cthulhu, and personally, I'm also a big fan.
Mhm.
Was it mainly kind of that mythos around Cthulhu that was for you the biggest intrigue about the film?
You know, I not necessarily because I actually really like a good story. I
Yeah,
really like a strong narrative that has a beginning, middle, and end. I'm not the kind of person that, you know, really gravitates, even when I'm watching films, to something that is highly artistic and interpretive. I really like a good story with strong characters. And I felt like all the characters were strong. Sophie's character as Emma and Ludovic's character as Isaac were highly intriguing and strong and both fantastic actors. I didn't know who we were going to get for those roles, but
yeah,
I loved working with them so much. They're both amazing, amazing performers. But even reading it on the page, I just felt like I understood the story and I knew what it was going for. And that's really what impressed me. I like the writing.
yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
the writing's fantastic and the story's great. I mean, I know that, you know, the guys work very hard on this and bringing to life the Cthulhu mythos, which I think it's a tricky thing to do, but it's very subtle, and I like that. And I think one of the things as well that the film really has in there is the fact that, you know, the location is so powerful. It was, I mean,
Uh,
it's stunning. How was it filming in that location?
well, I'd never been to Norway before, and I thought the scenery was just incredible. It was mesmerizing to me. When I got there to the town that we were in, you'd see all this water and then mountains jutting out of the water, and then water coming down from the mountains into the body of water.
Wow.
And you didn't know where the water ended and where it began. It was incredible. It was just it was the most splendid location I think I've ever been in. It was just it
Wow.
was magical. Um, and I don't think initially they were planning on shooting it there. I mean, you could shoot it anywhere, really.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it was towards the end when they were trying to find a location that they decided on Norway. And I thought the location really lent a lot of atmosphere
Yeah.
to the whole production. It was incredibly gorgeous.
Yeah, it really does build an atmosphere, and it
Mm.
feels quite, to me anyway, I thought it looked, in even though it's beautiful, it also looked quite eerie. Did it have that kind of feeling whilst you were there?
Yeah, it was very kind of cool and misty some days,
Yeah,
and a slight bit of rain, and it was moody. I'd say it was really moody some days. Um, Myself and the girls, Johanna and Sophie, stayed in an Airbnb overlooking a lake in the middle of the fjords. And there was a couple of days that we had beautiful sunshine,
yeah.
and that was also incredible. But most of the time, it was a little bit gloomy, overcast, um, and yeah, you really got this, eerie, sort of mysterious feel about the location most days.
Yeah, I can imagine that, especially with the, with the mountains and the water,
Mhm.
and I guess, also the story of the film.
Yes, and the water was quite cold too. We had wetsuits underneath our cult robes, but even with the wetsuits, it was really, really cold because we had to stand there in
Yeah.
the water for so long.
Oh, wow. That must have been a nice long day.
Well, it's funny when you're filming something, it's like it's either too hot or too cold. So you have to, if it's not part of the story, you just have to ignore it.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and one thing I really love about the film was the ending of the film. I did not see the plot twist coming.
Right, right. I
Um,
didn't either when I read it.
right?
Yeah.
It's
No, I didn't. No, it was a surprise to me.
Yeah, it really
Mhm.
catches you off guard, which, I think it's, you kind of have a thought about where the film is going, and then, there's this sudden change at the end.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, what was your, during the filming and during the entire film, what were kind of your personal favorite parts?
Let's see. Well, I mean, I did like the ending where I had to take the machete or whatever it was, the sword I was holding, and chop Ludo's head off. That was pretty fun. I'm all for a good beheading every once in a while. And
Oh,
for me, Barbara, I don't get a chance to play roles like that
yeah,
as often as some of my male counterparts. So that was pretty exciting and fun. We had a great time on the beach. I think it took us 3 nights to shoot that scene, and they were all overnights. And it was beautifully shot and really cool and very eerie, um, and that was probably one of my favorite scenes. And then the dinner scene. I had like I come in a little bit. It's really Ludo and Sophie's story, Emma and
yeah,
Isaac, but um, I have three really intense, really well written, long scenes in the film, and one of them is the dinner scene.
yeah.
And what modern horror movie doesn't deserve a good dinner scene? I've had a few of those, so I found that scene to be really fun to shoot. We all had a lot of fun with that because it was just a lot of different thoughts in everybody's head about what was happening, and that's where my daughter's character, Johanna Astrid, had sort of some things to do very subtly with Ludo's character, and we got to play off that, and also, there's just a lot of things going on. I was entertaining them, but also finding out more information, and there was a little intrigue for the audience. I think finding out that there's some Cthulhu mythos there,
Mhm.
and just with all of those things going on, it was a really fun scene to shoot.
Yeah, I loved the dinner scene. I thought it set a really fantastic atmosphere. And like you said, the dialogue is very, very strong, and it's quite surprising because it's quite a slow-paced scene, but at the same time, I felt that it was, really immersive in what it delivers in terms of the film. Um, and you you've not just been in Sacrifice, you've also been in many, many amazing horror films, including Your Next, which I am a huge fan of. Andy begged me to show you my tattoo, but
Oh,
I've got a, yeah, he did, but unfortunately I've got very long sleeves on and I can't get up to show you. But it's yeah, it's just a little wolf because for
oh
me I
yeah.
thought it was, fantastic film, as are so many of the other films that you've been in. And would you say that the horror genre is one that personally interests you?
Yeah, I guess it's become my life and my career. Uh, but I didn't think that it was going to go that way when I was first starting out as a young actor. I just wanted to be in television or movies. And,
Yeah.
I didn't grow up like a lot of horror fans do, completely loving horror from a very early age. Although looking back on it now, I guess I did watch a lot of things that are considered horror because I grew up watching The Outer Limits and Night Gallery and I don't know if you guys got um, uh, the series with Jonathan Frick where he played Barnabas Collins, Dark Shadows. Did
Yes.
you got
Yeah,
yeah,
I
so
think I did. Yeah.
yeah, I grew up watching all of those things and I was really in love with Dark Shadows. That was my favorite show growing up. It terrified me because I was only um, I think 11 or 12 when I was watching it,
Yeah.
and it made such an impact on me. But when I first started acting, I my first job was on a soap opera in Los Angeles, and then I subsequently, for the next 12 years or so, kind of went back and forth from doing soap operas to doing horror movies and some television things and commercials. And I never really thought, oh, this is my life. This is what I do until I came back with Your Next because I had taken a little bit of a break.
Hmm.
I got married and moved away from Los Angeles and had some children and was fully engaged with my family life. And only because the producers called me and reached out and asked if I wanted to be in this movie and play the mom, uh, did I say, "Oh, okay, that would be fun to revisit acting again. I'll do that." But I never anticipated that it was going to have quite the impact that it did,
Yeah.
and I had so much fun doing it, and uh, we sold to a very big company, Lionsgate, and then I thought, well, maybe I should continue doing acting. Maybe this, maybe I could come back even after taking a break and being a mom. So I sort of rededicated myself to my career, and I decided at that time that, oh, I guess, I'm a member of a club that I didn't know I belonged to, the horror
Yeah.
community. So here I am, and I do love horror. So I realized I should just rededicate myself to this aspect of my career, my horror career. So that's all I've been doing for the past 10 years
Yeah.
and love it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you are, everyone loves you in the horror community. I would say, you are an icon for us horror fans. And I think, especially from my perspective anyway, for female horror fans, I think it's always nice to see strong women in horror because it can often be quite a male dominated world, which
Yeah. Hmm.
is absolutely fine, but it's so nice, to have other women. Do you think that the industry's become more supportive over the years of women in horror also being kind of represented as a bit more powerful and in the limelight?
Yes, I've seen a big change in the last 10 years. I've seen, especially if we go back to Your Next, I'll say working with Amy Simons, at the time she was writing and she had just started directing and she was an actress. And that was really inspiring to me to work with her and see that a lot of young people are multi hyphenates now doing a lot of things, a lot of new uh, directors of photography and producers as well. And when I was younger and first starting out in the 80s, we didn't have as many women doing these kinds of jobs. I mean, I just think, it's a cultural evolution and it's a natural progression that women are going to be a stronger force uh, in the horror community and also in the greater aspect of the film community at large. So absolutely, without question, I really have seen a shift, as everyone has, I think, and it's been a long time coming. And I still feel like we have to promote ourselves a little bit more than the men do, and we have to just be ever vigilant to have our seat at the table and to continue to go up for jobs, whether they're above the line or below the line in the film community. But I do see a shift, and it's been wonderful. It's been really exciting for me to be here in the community where I feel like women are now more respected than than just being like a bubble-headed co-ed screaming for her life, like
Yeah.
Jeffrey Combs talked about me in Reanimator. So yeah, it definitely things have shifted for the better.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's very inspiring for a lot of us, and I'm seeing so many of us women, horror fans kind of
Yeah,
coming
and
out.
journalists. I mean, there's more journalists now actually in the
Really.
community. I don't remember when I was younger ever being interviewed by a female journalist in the horror community, but there have been a lot of women fans for a very long time. And, now everybody's just seeing that, over the last couple of years, that they were there the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm glad that we've kind of things have shifted and we get to, have our voices heard a little bit more. And my final question for you, Barbara, would be from your career to date, what's been some of your most memorable moments?
Well, I could say about Your Next being at the Toronto Film Festival, and that was our premiere for that film, and having 1,700 people in the Ryerson Theater in Toronto, all screaming and clapping and laughing and just loving the film. It was just, like a warm hug of just loveliness. Just to know, oh, I'm in the right place. I'm in the right community. So
Yeah.
that was a highlight. And also, it's funny. I've have really great moments and memories of different films, like with From Beyond. I feel like that role gave me the opportunity to play so many layers of a character because her character was so multidimensional, being a psychiatrist and then trying to save someone, also becoming a bit of a femme fatale and then going mad at the end. So, that's not really one moment, but that's a whole film. And also coming back with a movie like We Are Still Here, Ted Gagan, who worked on the press for Your Next, asked me to be in We're Still Here after we became quite friendly working on Your Next. And that I feel like that movie, more than really any other movie, sort of cemented my comeback after Your Next. So
Yeah.
I have a great fondness and affinity for that film and also working on that movie. But I really feel like it's not one instant. It's not one moment that I can look back on and say this was like the greatest moment
Yeah.
of my career, my life, because I feel and especially in a business like the film business, it's all freelance, and it's very difficult to get every project going. And now I'm working on producing things, and it can take years, and there's just a lot of stress and a lot of hard work and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. But I think when you look back on your career, whatever it is, you can look at the totality of something, and over time those things become more meaningful to you. maybe you don't realize them at the time, but they really are stepping stones for you. And I always tell people, because I think it's a hard business to be in,
Mhm.
that it's a long game, and you can work in this business for a really long time because nothing's really stopping you but you. So you have to just dedicate yourself to it and keep moving, and then after 35 years or 40 years you can look back and see all the things that you did that maybe at the time you didn't think were that big of a deal. I didn't think that doing a movie called Reanimator was any big deal at the time. It didn't.
Yeah.
And when the movie came out, we got some nice reviews from people, but it wasn't a blockbuster. It wasn't a big splash.
Yeah.
But over time, that film and From Beyond um, and Chopping Mall, of all things, they've become cult classics. But
Yeah.
at the time, they really didn't make that big of a splash. So I think, people have to give themselves a little bit of a break, and know that whatever area you're working in, that everything that you're doing right now has meaning and has value. And you might not see that until many years down the line, but you have to keep at it and keep going.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess everyone's career is kind of more of an amalgamation of everything that's happened throughout the years.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Barbara. That's been amazing. I'm sure Andy will be in touch to let you know. He kindly informed me it's not the DVD, it's the Blu-ray.
Oh, great.
Apparently
Even
DVD
better.
is not the same, so I do apologise for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure Andy will be in touch to let you know. I'm sure you'll get a copy of the Blu-ray. I'm sure that's how these things work, right?
Yes, that's fantastic. Do we even know when the movie's coming out?
I'm not sure. No. Um, I'm guessing that they're hoping. I guess if they're working on the DVD and things like that, maybe next year at some point.
Mhm, mhm.
But yeah,
Okay.
cool. Well, thank you
Oh,
so much. I hope
thank you.
hope you enjoy the rest of your day because I know
Thank
it's quite early there, so you've got the rest of the day to yourself.
Yeah. Thank you. Zoe, nice meeting you.
You too,
Th-
Barbara.
Thanks
Take
for the
care.
great questions. Okay. Bye.